Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Reverend Dream, and Miss Tammy's in one of my favorite places, and you'll see why here in a minute. But today I wanted to get on here, and I want to let you hear a story. Everybody loves good stories, so this is one that you might want to grab your children, grab your husband, grab your sweet tea, have a seat, and listen as we take you through this journey of this story. Today's journey is the only Amish Mailman. That's right, Amish Mailman. One day, while we was working with the children, we work with at-risk special needs, and everybody knows handicapable children, and we have for the past 35 years. And as we was training, teaching the children, I noticed an Amish man stop along the highway and just sit there for a minute. Mind you, it was the dead of the summer in Arkansas, which gets very hot and very, very humid. And he was dressed in Amish attire, black hat, black jacket, the way Amish usually wears, big beard, no mustache. And if y'all know, the Amish has their way of, if you're married, you don't have a mustache. If you are not married, you have a mustache. But that's neither here nor there. That's their story. But the story of this Amish mailman was, as he stopped, he admired what we was doing. And with it being so hot, I told Miss Tammy, I said, Miss Tammy, please run out and get this gentleman a glass of water, sweet tea or whatever. And so she went in the house and got some bottled water, ran back out, and he was wiping his brow. She gave him some water, and as she sat there, she asked him if he would like to come down and sit down with us and visit with us for a minute and fellowship. So he agreed, and he come down and sat down on our bench as we was teaching the children. I stopped teaching. I went up to him and started to talk to him. I said, sir, I said, I'm Reverend Dream. I said, where are you coming from? I said, I know you're Amish. He said, yes, I'm Amish. And I said, well, you know, I have German ancestry to me too. And I said, I'm curious, why are you walking out on the highway? Because Amish is very rare in Arkansas. They're out here, but you hardly ever see their presence. And he told me, he said, well, I'm an Amish mailman. I said, an Amish mailman? I said, sir, I've never heard of one. He said, that's because I'm the only one. I said, you're the only Amish mailman? He said, yes. And I said, well, can you enlighten me on a little bit of your story? I said, how long have you been an Amish mailman? He said, for 30 plus years. I think he said 35 to be exact. And I said, really? And he said, yes. He said, this is my last trip though. I said, so you're retiring? He said, yeah, pretty much so. I said, okay. I said, well, where's your route at, if you don't mind me being personal? He said, well, he said, I start out in Patunxie, Pennsylvania. I said, wait a minute. You start out at Patunxie, Pennsylvania? He said, yes. And as a lot don't know, if they don't or do, a lot of the Amish come from Patunxie. And it's a real big culture there. But that's where he had walked from. Okay, hold on just a minute. We got Miss Tammy coming back in. She wants to say hi to you. Miss Tammy, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
What have you got there, Miss Tammy?
Oh, it smells good.
What is it?
It's chicken livers.
Chicken livers. Okay.
My goodness.
As she gets her chicken livers ready, and be quiet about it, I'm going to finish the story I was telling. But I said, you started at Patunxie, Pennsylvania? He said, yes. I said, okay, where do you go from Patunxie? And he said, well, I walked down the coast to California. I said, wait a minute. you walk from Patonksy to California. Is that correct? He said, yes. I said, okay, then what do you do? Walk back to Patonksy? And he said, no. He said, then I go from California to Kentucky. I said, you go to Kentucky? He said, yes. I said, you walk it? He said, yes. I said, okay. When you go to Kentucky, where do you go from there? He said, well, I go back to Patonksy. I said, so you make a round trip from Patonksy, Pennsylvania to California, from California to Kentucky, and back to Pennsylvania. Is that correct? He said, yes. I said, mister, your faith must be very, very strong. And I said, plus, you get a lot of time with the Lord. He said, yes, I do. And I said, well, my next question is, how many times do you do this? I said, is it just one trip a year? Or do you do it, does one trip take you 2 years? He said, no. He said, I usually do one trip. He said, on a good year, he said, I'm liable to do 2. I said, do what? He said, yeah, I might do 2, according to how much mail I have and what the need is. I said, so you're telling me you might actually walk 2 trips around the United States delivering mail? He said, that's exactly what I'm telling you. Now, mind you, if you don't know the Amish, they're not one for stories, okay? And he says, and I'm not allowed to ask for anything in the trip. I said, what? He said, like, if you wouldn't have offered for water, he said, I wouldn't have been able to ask you. I said, so you wouldn't have been able to ask for water even when you're thirsty? He said, no. I said, wow. I said, well, do you at least make some off the trip? He said, well, the church donates $3,500 per trip. I said, wow. I said, so do you make anything? He said, well, if I finish the trip and I have anything left over, he said, I donate it back to the church. I said, so you don't make a penny for this? He said, no. He said, this is just what I do. I said, sir, I said, I have very much admiration for you. I said, well, can you tell me, if you don't mind, how much you have left? And I think he had what, Miss Tammy, $35? Something trivial
Something
to
like
that
It
effect.
wasn't a whole lot.
So friends of mine, loaded him up and took him to the next town, bought him lunch, and donated a little bit of money to his cause. But he wouldn't have been able to ask. But I thought I'd come on here and let you know about this because it was so interesting to me. And I asked him, I said, sir, why is this trip your last trip? He said, well, I'm delivering citizenship papers to all the Amish across the United States. I said, what's that about? He said, well, the church has felt that God has left the United States. Now we are applying for citizenship in Canada, and we'll be moving there because we felt God has left this country. Ladies and gentlemen, that was one of the hardest things I ever heard. Not because he's given up his morals or his values or his living arrangements, but to know that this gentleman who was very religious felt that God has left us. It's hard to swallow, but I know that's how he felt, and the church did too. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to get back to the old way of life, to where we say our prayers in school, where we believe in God Almighty, not just on the dollar, not just on the words, God bless America, but actually believe that God is blessing America. as we allow other citizens to flow into this country from different places, different morals and different views, and different religions, God will be leaving this country because the views might not sustain to what he believed. Wasn't this country, the great United States of America, once was great with God's love, thoughts, and admirations, not just in words, but in beliefs, values, and morals? Now as we look around times, in a lot of the towns that's larger, we see homeless people, veterans, people who lost their homes, and times being tough. While the people we bring into our society that's new and fresh and from other countries get more hands and hands up in scholarships, funding, than most American people here today. Now, I'm not going to get political because most are going to say you already have, Mr. Dream. But I will say that God's children needs to be helped more, whether it's by the country, whether it's by the citizens, or it's by prayer. If you see a homeless veteran out on the streets today, thank that man. If you see somebody who's lost their home, might not have nothing to eat, might have a child or two, don't look down on that person, but give that person some food. Wouldn't God feed you if you was truly hungry? You say, how can God feed me, brother man? If he can feed the birds, if he can feed the grass, don't he feed us? Now remember this Amish mailman, when your faith falls short. Remember the walk that man had to walk, the miles that he had to put on his feet, the shoes that he must have wore out, but the faith that kept him going. Please, if you don't share nothing, share this for him, to show him God has not left this country, only gotten stronger in this country by my belief, by her belief,
Amen.
and by your belief. Only you and God himself can change this country back to the way it was. If you don't take that time out for me, you don't take that time out for her. Take that time out for him, because that's all that matters in this life. When you leave this world and you face him before judgment, what's he going to say to you? Will he say, workers of iniquity, leave me now, I know you not? Or will he say, well done, servant, welcome with love, joy, and peace forevermore? This is Reverend Dream.
And Miss Tammy.
It's time to munch out. And as my friends say,
Peace out.
peace out.